Hello, hello. This is episode 14 of Making a Marketer. Today we're talking retail marketing, and we have a stellar guest. Her name is Salena Knight. She's here all the way from Sydney, Australia. Hey, I'm Megan Powers, and I'm with Powers of Marketing. You can find me on Twitter at Megan Powers, and this show is brought to you by my company, and we do strategic marketing consulting for businesses of all sizes, especially in the meetings and events space. So today I'm recording live on Facebook. This is our mid-month show, and it'll be a 30-minute show. And today I'm trying something new, and I'm also broadcasting from my personal page in addition to the Powers of Marketing page. Of course, as always, we'll pull the audio off of the video, and we'll post it on the podcast. So I want to give a big welcome to Salena Knight. Welcome.
Hi there. How are you?
So I'm good. Thank you for rallying this morning. I have a confession to our listeners and those who didn't hear me earlier. Obviously, if you're listening on the replay, this will be news, but I did some bad math, and actually, I did proper math in the wrong season. So we sprang forward, and the time that I gave her to start was 8 a.m. her time, but really it was 7 a.m. So it's been a little bit of a scramble between that and some technical difficulties this morning. But I appreciate you really rallying today to be on the show.
No problems. It just means you don't get the really great hair at 7 o'clock in the morning.
You look wonderful. What are you talking about?
Oh, thank you. Well, thank you so much for having me on the show.
Oh, absolutely. And I know you have a podcast too, and so we'll talk about that in a little bit. I want our listeners to hear about that. I'm going to give you a little introduction now, and if I've said anything or if I've left anything out, be sure to let me know. So Salena Knight is a retail strategist, consultant, and speaker who loves speaking about growing cash flow, sales, and profits through customer experience, digital marketing, and customer attraction retention strategies. Her passion is to help independent retailers like you have a profitable retail business without burning out. Successfully building, growing, then selling a multi-award-winning chain of retail stores, she now focuses on empowering other retailers to build their businesses. Now that is pretty powerful. So we tell our viewers and listeners, I'm sure they'd love to know how you got to the point of helping other business owners. Can you briefly tell us your story? I mean, that said a little bit about it, but from your perspective, kind of how did you get to where you are now?
Oh, that could be a whole story in itself. But in a nutshell, I do feel quite blessed to be where I am right now. I was in a situation when I was young, when I was in my sort of early teens, where I had to leave my home. And as a result, I had to kind of get shuffled between grandparents and then, people outside of our family to look after me because my mum was not in a position to look after us. So I've kind of been out there really hustling, and I'm so anti-hustle these days. I'm 42 now. The word hustle just makes me want to cringe. But I have to say, back when I was sort of in my 15, 16, 17, that was when I was hustling. And, I didn't know any better. So for me, it was just a case of you want something better in life, you go out and work for it. So, I was quite lucky in the sense that I always had people who were there to support me, even if they weren't necessarily my family, friends, whatever. But I went through quite a lot of turbulent situations in my younger days. And I mean, one of the ones I remember just quite clearly was trying to get a lease for an apartment when you're only 16. That's really difficult.
Yeah.
But, you don't know any other way. So you just keep working at it. I started my first career as a horticulturist for local government, so for a local authority. And I don't even know how I got into that, because I'd always loved the concept of gardening, but our family were not gardeners. It's not like I'd been pottering around in the garden, and so this was my next logical step. It just seemed like a really good idea at the time.
I think that happens to a lot of us. I think a lot of us end up where we are based on, just happenstance.
Yeah.
That's
so I did that for probably about 6 or 7 years. And then once you've been in the industry and you've completed your trades and whatnot, you usually find a specialty. So my specialty was arboriculture, which is tree surgery. So then I went on and trained as a tree surgeon, and I was, climbing trees and driving trucks and driving tractors and all that kind of fun stuff. I kind of grew out of local government. It worked out that you can only get to a certain point in those kind of hierarchical situations. And being a young female, there's like a level. You are never going to cross that level. So I then went off to do something very similar, and I worked for private enterprise. So I went out to become a contract manager for the companies that trim the trees around the power lines. So same field, different situation. And again, there was sort of the situation there was that I was lucky enough to have a supervisor who was actually American. He'd come over to Australia because the company was American, and he could just see that I had that drive and determination to make it work. Fast forward through then, I got headhunted by the actual power company to come and manage their contract management for the trees. So I've kind of spent most of my beginning career in a really male-dominated society. Literally 1-2 women. There was nobody there to show me what things should look like. And I always say that was my induction into fire, into customer experience, because the thing about trees is people either love them or hate them. And when you cut them, people love you or they hate you. There's never an in-between, because the people in between don't actually do anything. It just goes over their head. So I always say that was my indoctrination of fire into trying to find win-win situations and trying to make sure that customer experience left with everybody in an okay situation. I didn't know what customer experience was back then, though. And now I have a word for it. When I fast forward through there, and when I was pregnant with my daughter, I was obviously very passionate about sustainability. I'm a very natural kind of person. And this was in 2008. So guys, just remember, Facebook just kind of hit the shelves in 2008, 2009 I was one of the first people with a business Facebook page. I've been through the whole digital marketing cycle. When I had my daughter in hospital, we had to buy a prepaid dongle for my computer to send the photos to the in-laws overseas.
Right.
And we forget, right? It was only 10 years ago, but we forget. And so I like to say I've been right through the digital marketing, the plethora of algorithm changes and SEO changes and all that kind of stuff. So when I had my daughter, I actually left the power company, and I couldn't find any of these sustainable products in a real store. And I was, baby carriers, reusable nappies, organic skincare. Now you can find them anywhere. But back in the day, there was nowhere. So I decided to start an online business, which I did for about 6 months, and then I opened an actual physical store. And that whole store was built on community. I was a first-time mum, and I don't have any family nearby. So I didn't really have anybody I could talk to. And in my head, I'll be honest, I didn't really like kids, right? So I don't know why I opened a baby shop, but I think for me it was for the parents. And I just wanted somewhere you could come and you could just ask the questions. And by default, we always ended up with women in the store. That was not because we had to. I'd be more than happy to have any dads in there. But, guys, just put your fingers in your ears if you want. But if a lady came in and she had cracked nipples, we wanted to be able to say, you know what, we've tested all these products and these are what work. And so that's what I wanted to build, and that's what I did build. And we grew that store. As you said, we won loads of awards. And 8 years later, I realized I'd just processed myself out of the business. Gotcha. And it was no fun anymore. So I ended up selling the business, and now I'm here helping other people grow their businesses.
Fantastic. Well, and it's interesting that you went from online to brick and mortar, which I think a lot of now are going the other way. And I want to later. I want to talk just a little bit. It's a short show today, so I know we could talk for an hour, but just about how the online market is affecting brick and mortar. So if we have time to get your perspective on that, I would love that. So, okay. Sure. So there were two things in particular that you talk about that stood out to me that I would love for you to share with our listeners. And then I'm going to say real quick too, for anyone who's watching on my personal page, hi guys, come on over to Powers of Marketing. You'll get to see Salena Knight, our awesome guest, all the way from Sydney, Australia. And that's kind of why I'm doing it, for those of you who tuned in late. It's a little experiment to see if we get more live listeners on my business page. So, all right, so we want to talk cash flow first. So there are 3 places that you've identified where businesses are leaking cash flow typically.
Yes.
And you have some ways to fix it. So will you share that with us?
Okay, the first one is marketing. We all know we need to be marketing, and especially online marketing. But the biggest thing I see, in fact, I just did a webinar, like we call them live masterclasses. We just did a live masterclass on this about people who advertise, and this one was about Facebook ads. So I'm going to talk about Facebook ads, but this encompasses everything.
Right.
And just not being really clear about what you want the outcome to be. And so many people I know, they do a trade show, they do Facebook ads, they do Instagram ads, Google ads. And when they don't work, they go, oh, that was a brand awareness campaign. I'm like, no, it's not. Oh, do we have to am I allowed to curse? You have to tell me, because sometimes I get, you good?
No, for Australia, I expect nothing less.
It's like, you can't bloody afford a brand awareness campaign. You can afford a sales campaign. So one of the things is just be really clear about what the outcome is, because how many people here are boosting posts on Facebook? A lot. And when you boost a post on Facebook, you can't really choose the objective that you want. And if you're using a sales campaign, you really want conversions. You want sales. You don't want to drive traffic. And this is, same thing when people put flyers out, when they do print media, they don't actually think about what the objective is. So they're leaking money in their marketing because they know they should be spending money on marketing because everybody tells them to, but they don't. Not necessarily that they don't even know what they're doing, but they haven't actually thought that whole journey through from this is where my person is when they see my piece of, my ad, my piece of marketing, to this is where I want them to go.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's the biggest one that I see is just people spending money on marketing and they're not getting any ROI because they don't know where they want the person to end up, or they're not driving them to the place they want them to end up.
Well, they don't have any strategy behind it. Like they're just doing it to do it. Yeah.
Yes.
Or they're just throwing it up there. Like that's what I always say when I have clients who they're on every platform, but they're not active on every platform. And so my advice always is you don't have to be everywhere.
Yes.
But you just have to do the ones that you're on. You have to do them well. So if you have a Twitter account and no one's posted on it for 5 years, either get cracking or delete it. So
that's interesting. I would love your take on that, because the theory has always been you should always secure your name or your tagline, your handle, whatever you're going to use across all social media platforms so that nobody else can come in and take them.
Right. But with 5 years later and you haven't done anything with it. I mean, I see that in theory, and I think that's partly why there's so many taken Twitter handles that are not active. Like making a marketer is not available, but the person's not using it. So I had to do make a marketer, which is close, but not the same thing. So, and I guess I could have gone through the exercise of trying to find that person. And anyway, I just think, and Elizabeth says, should I delete? So that's an interesting point. She works for a company now. She had a consulting business. I don't know. I mean, or pin a tweet that says something about why you're not on there. I don't know. I just think if it's an active business, like I think Elizabeth, it's a little bit different because she's not actively working within that arena. She's not consulting. So, but if, like if a client with a study abroad program and they have a Twitter account that they don't ever post to. And so my thought is, if you want to compete with other schools that also have a Twitter account, then be active on your Twitter account. Otherwise, I don't think it's worth having out there, because to me, it shows a lack of, I don't know, it's something's missing. That's how I look.
And I guess in this day and age, there are so many scheduling softwares out there that you don't actually have to do anything. Like worst case, even if you show that you're inept at Twitter, I am inept at Twitter, we still post our podcast out there once a week. So it's still something goes out there, but it's not an active channel in terms of my people aren't hanging out on Twitter. So we have it there so that we can keep it live. And maybe somebody is on Twitter, but the majority of our people are on Instagram and Facebook.
That's interesting. Yeah. So, I mean, then engagement's not an issue for you, because if they're not engaging with you, then it's not an issue about you not engaging back. But that's always my thing is, if you're going to be somewhere and posting, that to try to not have it be a one-way street, to have it be that conversation. But it is a good news platform. And yeah, if you may get discovered by people who don't know about you because of Twitter. And I think that's where the great value is in it. And that, links to, like, I find the most value in Twitter from, well, first of all, community, because I have a community on Twitter, but I know everybody doesn't. But like I have a tribe, but I work in social media too. So I mean that helps. Yeah. But I also find a lot of blogs, a lot of really valuable information through Twitter that I would not have found otherwise. So anyway, we could talk forever. All right. So that was your first one was marketing. Do it purposefully. Don't just do ads to do ads, but have a strategy behind what it is.
And just keep track of what's going on. Again, people who are running ads and spending $500, but 2 days into it, you could see you didn't even get a click. Right. Like, you've always got to leave some time, but if you haven't had a click in 2 days, it's not working. Turn it off.
Totally. Or regroup.
Yes.
Do some testing. But to ask the average user to do A/B testing is, I think, a stretch.
Which is why I just say turn it off and start again. This is the basics. Just switch it off, start again.
Right, for sure.
Okay, the second one is just not being aware of where your money's going. So I did a little exercise with someone the other day. When I bring a client on board, one of the first things we looked at is profit and loss. And the first thing I go to is subscriptions. And then I make them go through and tell me what are they subscribed to. Because it wouldn't be the first time to find someone has 2 different email service providers that they're paying for.
Not email, but I just went I'm using all these posting platform. I'm paying for all these posting platforms that I'm not using. So I'm with that.
Spotify. How many people are paying for Spotify and don't actually use it because they've upgraded to Apple Music or some other kind of music situation? I had one client who realized she'd spent $350 on Spotify because she bought it for her 40th birthday for a playlist and never used it ever again. Email service providers is another one. Banks, like a lot of people have to pay, $10 fee a month for their bank account, business bank account, or, small portion for their business bank account, but they have 3 or 4 business bank accounts. And just because they've never closed them down. So, $50 a month going out for these business bank accounts that you aren't even using. So there's always subscriptions. I'm sitting here thinking, I know I'm paying for a support of something we don't use anymore as I say that, because we just switched over at the end of last month. I need to go in and cancel that. Yeah. Sure. It's not hard to get about $1,000 a year back, sometimes way more. But most people, it's about $1,000 a year.
Right. Yeah, I discovered mine when I was doing my taxes, of course. Well, it's a write-off, but all right. So Steve has a question. I'm going to get Steve once we get through the third thing of these, and I'll get to your question, and then I'll put it on screen and stuff. He's got a good question. So okay. So what's the third?
Okay, the third one is when you have a team, is just not using them to the best of their ability. I know these are not your standard. I wasn't going to give you really basic things like, you're not selling, you've got stock sitting on your shelf. You guys know all that. But the other one is team. The great thing about small business is you are in a situation when you bring somebody on to give them a job that is dynamic. Like, how often do we hire someone in small business for just one thing? And the answer is usually never. If you get a VA, they don't just do your WordPress site. They're probably going to do a little bit of, you'll find something else that they're good at, and they'll go, oh, you know what, I can do that. So same thing happened with my VA. He came on just to do WordPress. and we were paying an editor for the podcast. And it took him about 6 months, and he's like, you do realize I do that for somebody else, don't you? I was like, no. He goes, yeah, I edit.
VA is virtual assistant for those who
virtual assistant, yes. And so he's like, yeah, I do XYZ's podcast. I was like, dude, I would much rather you do it, because then we're not, where there's no friction point. Like, we had to send it off to that person, we had to wait for it to come back, blah, blah, blah. And so now he does like the whole process right from the beginning. So the other thing is, like, in store, so many people I see, they've got a small boutique store, and when there's no customers, their staff just stand there, or they're dusting. And inevitably, everyone has a superpower, is what I say. But, maybe they're great at taking photos of flat lays. Maybe they're great at writing blog posts. Maybe they're great at your social media, and they can queue up some Facebook posts for you. The fact is, they're going to be good at something.
Right.
You just have to work out what that superpower is, because you should not be putting products on your website. You should not be writing copy for your website. You should not be, as the business owner, these are not things that you guys should be doing. So you're leaking money if your staff are just standing there dusting. Yes, dusting needs to be done, but something else may need to be done more. And I think a lot of retailers just get their head in this kind of blinker mode, which is, I hired Susan to be a shop associate. It's like, yeah, but Susan's not dumb. And she's actually going to be more excited when she comes to work if she loves photography and she can dabble a little bit in photography. Same thing happened with my merchandise. And, these are things I tell you guys because I have done them. Right. Merchandise, and we were paying someone to come and do all of our windows. And then in two of my shops, the girls were just chatting, and one was like, oh, we should do this in the windows. We should do this in the windows. And then they just came to me and said, oh, we've got this great idea for the windows. Can we have a go? I'm like, hell yeah, you have a go. And they were awesome.
Nice.
And I was paying someone like $800 to come and merchandise shop windows. Oh, and so the great thing for them was they became so engaged in coming to work. Like, they would plan out when the shop wasn't busy, they'd call each other and they go, oh, this is the concept I had. I'm going to get these props and I'm going to do this. And the other one would be like, oh, you could do this and you could do that. And so, it was collaboration, but just that reignited passion. And I think we forget that not only are we losing money, but you could well lose a really fantastic staff member, virtual or otherwise, just because you were really linear about the thing you hired them to do.
Yeah, for sure. That happens across all businesses. And I've talked about this before. Like, I have had times where I've had bosses go, oh, well, you can do that? Like, yeah, would you like to see my resume? Like, yeah, I can do that. As a salesperson, I got my bachelor's in English. I'm a writer. Yeah. And I used to be a technical writer. And so, like, I had a software startup company who didn't have a lot of work for me to do it at the outset. I was pre-marketing. They were holding me back because the product wasn't ready yet. And I was like, well, who's going to write the online help? And he said, oh, well, I don't know. I mean, we hadn't really thought about that. And I said, well, I used to do that for a job. You can use. He's like, oh, really? Yeah, 5.5 years I wrote user's guides and online help. So, but he hired me to do marketing. So, I mean, it makes sense that he wouldn't have thought that. But it's just kind of fun. To your point, just ask. And
I was going to say, how easy would it have been for him to lose $5,000 for that? To go and hire someone to do that. So, for me, it's just being open, being aware that everybody has a superpower.
For sure. And it's so funny that you use that term superpower. I'm surprised Elizabeth hasn't chimed in, because that's one of my standing questions. When we have time, I ask my guests if they could have a superpower in their job, what would it be? So hopefully we'll get to that at the end.
Okay.
Because having a superpower just like regular life, I think is different than for your job. Okay. So Steve Dunn has asked, so company pre-launch online business question. Any thoughts? That's really broad. So Steve, if you want to give us any more specifics about what you're looking for, my guess is, what should people do online before the actual product has been launched?
So that's what I would take that to be like. How can he generate some interest in the product before he actually goes live? And that is key. I actually wrote a whole little kind of 21-day walkthrough on how to do this. But the key is just getting people to connect. So you guys have probably heard back in the day with Red Bull. Do you know the story about how Red Bull managed to get into shops?
No.
Oh, so they did like a bit of a guerrilla marketing campaign. They were trying to sell their product into shops and to supermarkets and things like that. And nobody wanted it. So what they did is they started getting friends ringing up the supermarkets and the shops saying, hey, do you stock Red Bull? Do you stock? And of course, once they started getting all these people asking for it, people would go back and do it. They also did a lot of guerrilla marketing tactics, like sort of flash mobs leaving masses of cans in the beach, near the beach and things like that. But the biggest thing they did was they just got people to ask for it, ask other people for it. So for me, creating some kind of awareness in the journey, and I'd love to know, Steve, what it is you're actually launching, because I had a lady who was opening a homeware store and it was in a historic building and the place was so run down. And I said to her, now is when we get you on social media. So for the first 6 months, her social media was filled with just renovating this historic shop before she even went into it. So she built this huge following along the way of people who were following the journey. And so by the time she came to opening the shop, she had like 2,000 followers. So I love behind the scenes. I'm not very good at behind the scenes. I have to say, I am not your creative type person. So I really struggle with behind the scenes. But Steve, if you can get out there on social media and you can just start showing people what the product is going to do, how it's going to change, what the journey is along the way. If it's a dancewear product, is it a piece of clothing? Hopefully he can get back, because this is fantastic. Because if it's dancewear, there's a lot of behind the scenes in dance. The people who you are going to be, your tribe, they're going to want to see your daughter at dance rehearsal, or they're going to want to see backstage before a show goes live. They're going to want to see the bunions on your feet. Like, it's disgusting, but that's what's going to bring them in.
Two dancer daughters. So I'm sure that's what this came out of. So yeah, for sure, recording the journey. And it doesn't have to be live, although live is fun, but you can record just like mini videos, showing a journey from before a product launches all the way through, I think is really powerful. Yes. Telling your own story in a way like that. Yeah. All right. Yes. He says,
and so if it's something like dancewear, you could show you going to the factory. You could show different swatches of colors. You can show you hunting for fabric, to get samples, all those kinds of things. That is, if people can be there before the product goes live, they are so invested in it. They feel like they are part of your business. They are your tribe. So if you can get them to get on board before you even sell it, you'll probably be able to pre-sell the product before you even have it made. And that's another key, is proof of concept. So if you can just get a prototype and you can sell the damn thing so you can have the cash flow coming in, but manage customer expectations in the process.
Yes, for sure. I can't tell you how many things I've bought on, Indiegogo or whatever. Just waiting a year to get a super awesome suitcase that.
Oh, the suitcase. Everybody bought the suitcase.
By the time it came out, there were like 5 other products from these huge businesses, right, that had the capital to do it before they did. And then it totally did not meet my expectations either. I was like, oh.
And now you can't get it through security anyway.
Right? Yeah. You have to keep the battery pack out. Yeah, I hadn't even bothered. Yeah, that's another story. I could go on about that.
But this is it. But what do they say? Disappointment is like I'm just paraphrasing here, but like disappointment is like the difference between expectations and what's delivered. So always in any business, but especially in retail, it's to over deliver.
Right.
And so if you can pre-sell it, again, this is where the journey comes in. So, hey guys, we've opened up the blue tutu. You can get yours now. And then you start going through what's happening with the blue tutu. And I would say if you have pre-sold something, you need to be sending out something once a week. You need to be monitoring that journey. And even if it's something goes wrong, like our technical difficulties today, we didn't just abandon it. We didn't just say, sorry guys, I know you're waiting there, but come back another day. We're just like, just keep going through, because it's that whole hero's journey. It's the ups and the downs that make people connect with you, Steve. So do just get out there, and you've got it so easy if there's something like dance, because it's pretty and it's sparkly. Like, it's much harder to sell. I don't even know why I have this blue tape. Yeah, this is a lot harder to sell, pre-sell masking tape, than something beautiful like dancewear. So I think you're going to be on a winner there.
Yeah, well, and he's active on Instagram, so I could see him definitely leveraging that and getting in on all those hashtags for sure. And he could hire me as a consultant. So real quick, and then one thing I think that helped save us today in terms of viewers is that I did start on my personal page and I let people know whereas if I wasn't doing that, people who were going to tune in, who had planned, who had made an appointment to tune in might have been like, what the heck,
Not there.
But like I said, I don't have a ton of viewers that come from my business page, and we get much more on the replay, tons of replay. And I think it might have something to do with the time of day and stuff too. But at least with my friends, that helped me to send. So anyone who's watching me on my personal page right now is just seeing me talk to you. And I keep trying to post, like, go to my business page on there.
Well, we were so like, frantic trying to get everything working that I didn't even get a chance to go and share it onto my page. So I will make sure once we've done, I will share the replay over onto my page for you.
Show perfect. Yeah. And I will, and then the audio will be out in the next couple days. So, So perfect. Okay. So we are running low on time, but I do want to, if we could quickly get through the 3 hacks to significantly change your online store.
Okay. That's a whole podcast in itself too. All right. Let me just go through really quickly. One is, when it comes to product descriptions, make sure that you've actually written them and you haven't just scraped from manufacturers. So it's really important to make sure that when you write not just keyword stuffing, but to me, the difference to buying something from a certain person and even paying more is, let's talk about this blue tape, is I say, not only is it 100 meters long and it's, an inch wide, I could go on and say, we love this tape because it's so easy to remove 48 hours later. Masking tape you usually have to take off in 24 hours. But if you've actually used the product, what does it, not necessarily the tape, but what does it smell like? What does it make you feel when you open the box? So because we had kids products, we always used to say, we love opening the box of these toys because they were these crazy toys. They always make us smile. And right. there was this little penguin, and no word of a lie, it would move in the shop. And obviously people would pick it up and move it, but it was always just this one penguin. And we used to say, the funny thing about Pete Penguin is he's never in the same place. Like, we'll come in the next day and he's moved from the shelf to somewhere else. Like, he's a little trickster. So we would put those kinds of things in because, again, it's about connection. And so you could buy Pete Penguin from 10 other stores, but when you came to our stores, we actually charged $2 more for, 10% more for him. But people would be like, oh, that's so cute. Or we'd say, this can go through the wash. We've tried it in, we know what it's like when it drops in the mud. You need to be able to put it through the wash. We've tested Pete. Manufacturer doesn't say this, but we've tested Pete in the wash and he came out just fine. Things like that. That's right. The difference between buying from you and buying from someone else.
Well, and I think carrying that, the way that you write your product descriptions, carrying that through your, all your marketing, having fun, if it fits the product, obviously.
Yes.
But having that creative way that you describe your products on the products carry over through everything else. So there's there.
So there's we call it brand voice. So making sure that brand voice is the same throughout all your channels. The second one is just really making good use of your post-cart purchase page. So when you buy something and it says order completed or, thanks for your order, you can customize that page, guys. Like, get me to do something on that page. Come and like us on Facebook, like us on Instagram, tag us for a chance to win $50. Like, something. I've just given you money. I am so excited about the thing that I've bought. I am so engaged right now. Don't just say thanks for your order. You are missing out on money. You're missing out on engagement. You're missing out on a whole bunch of stuff. Sell me something else.
Right.
I just bought. I'm happy to buy. Sell me something else.
Right. Absolutely.
And the other one is just upsells. People think upsells and cross-sells, you can only do them in store. But the fact is there are so many add-ons, Shopify, Magento, BigCommerce, all those kinds of things have apps that, yes, you're going to have to pay for them, but it's a small percentage. If you can get every single order up, I did a little exercise, and I can't remember the numbers off my head, but something along the lines of, I had a store that was doing $67 average sale, 30 sales a day. And we worked out, and guys, if you're calculating this, I'm probably wrong. We worked out if we could get her sales up $10, she would make an extra $200,000 over the year if she could just make that sale go up $10. So you are missing out on, literally 6 or 7 figures if you don't work out a way to cross-sell or upsell either online or in store. If you haven't trained your staff to do that, then that's back to you leaking money. But that's a huge, huge place where people just don't think, they don't want to be slimy salespeople.
Right. Yeah. I worked at Gap in college, and they wanted us to get the UPT up, the units per transaction. So that's a way for them to get us to try to hit a marker, and that's incrementally, obviously, increasing sales.
See, they're units. I'm rather dollars. I don't care how many units you sell. I would rather you sell one $200 product than 4 $10 products.
Right. No, absolutely. For sure.
So that would be my 3 hacks really quickly, because I know you're pushed for time.
No, so amazing. So I think the moral of this story for me is that we need to have you on for a full hour. Like this wealth of knowledge, and so we're talking through our second season. So I think in my second season I want to take those shows that were these short ones where there's just a lot more to talk about, or even there's some 1-hour shows where we're like, there needs to be a part 2.
We love those shows.
Yeah, and bring you back in season 2 and sort of expand on this. I think that you have this wealth of knowledge. So I just going to ask that final question then. If you could have superpower in your job, what would it be?
I think if I could come up with better, I was going to say subject lines, that would be great. So in terms of copywriting, I'm not, I can copyright, but I'm not a copywriter. So if you can give me a subject line, I can bang you out a blog post. I can put an article together. I can put a webinar together. But it's sometimes just, I write for a couple of trade organizations and they just give me free rein. I'm like, dude, you don't know how hard that is. Yeah. Just give me a topic at least. No, you know what you're doing. So if I could write those, not clickbaity, but, really pull you in kind of subject lines without having to write 50 subject lines to get there. Yeah, that would be an awesome superpower.
That would be awesome. So one thing I started to use is the headline analyzer.
Yes, the co-schedule one.
Yeah. So for those who are listening or watching who don't know, so you can just Google headline analyzer and you'll find it. And you enter it in and it tells you how it does on an emotional scale and all this, like if it's above 70 or gold, that kind of thing. So I use that to tweak my headlines and my subject titles for my blog posts because it's supposed to, generate more activity.
Mine tend to sit at about between like 80 and 83. I don't think I've ever cracked like over 85.
Wow, that's so good though. That's amazing. Perfect.
Okay. But it takes a lot of time to get those.
No, for sure. Mine is that I want internet Wi-Fi to be ubiquitous. I want it to work everywhere all the time. No issues. Like air. I want it to be like air.
Yeah. That would be awesome.
From living on the earth. Okay, so well.
I was going to say, I just put together a little, for those people who are listening, especially someone like Steve, if you do have inventory of any type, then I put together a little e-guide for you guys on how to move stock, 9 ways to move stock without having a sale. So you can grab it. I'll give you the link, but you can grab it at salenaknight.com/cash. And it's free. It's just an opt-in, pop your email address in. My first email that goes out says, love me or leave me. So if you just want the guide, that's okay. But of course, I would love it if you could stick around because there's always some great information going out every week.
For sure. Okay, so that was going to be my next question is how to best get a hold of you. So that's it, SalenaKnight.com.
Yes.
Yeah. Perfect. Well, Salena, thank you so much. I mean, I so appreciate you just agreeing to be on the show and rescheduling and then for totally rallying this morning because it is, for those who didn't hear earlier, it's Friday in Australia. She's in Sydney. And I scheduled it for 8 a.m. her time when it was really 7 a.m. So
you're lucky I checked my email.
Always an adventure. I know. I was sitting there going, I should just check this out. So yeah. So thank you so much. Really appreciate it. This has been episode 14 of Making a Marketer, and we will catch you next time.
Thank you.